Ontario introduced a new framework for police record checks this year for people who work with vulnerable children. The change requires those workers to be subjected to a more substantial background check. The change was meant to firm up security for at-risk kids, but instead, advocates say this actually makes things worse. For a closer look at why is Vanessa Millie. She is the CEO of the Foster Parents Society of Ontario. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
On the surface, broader police checks for adults working with vulnerable children would seem to be a good idea. It seems to be more thorough, but what are some of the issues that have come out of them?
Some of the issues that we're hearing as our members call into us is their concerns about what might come up in the police check that they might have wanted to keep private, things perhaps with mental health or a time in the past when maybe they were a victim, or just some things that look more complicated than they might actually have been at the time. So people are concerned about that. And there are some people who are not willing to get the broad sector check, so they've decided that the children they have in their homes might be their last. This is what we're hearing back from people. We also have people that are concerned about the discretionary quality of some of these broad sector checks, because we understand it can put into your file everything that was documented by the police anytime they were involved with a situation or a call or a conversation with your home. But some of them are coming back with absolutely nothing in them because the discretionary portion has, not decided to record anything that's there from anything from the past that might not have been in the vulnerable sector in the first place.
Why did they decide to implement the changes? What was the need? What was the genesis for this change?
Well, in child welfare, generally, since the welfare, it's always been a situation of something happened. Something bad happened that the system wants to make sure doesn't happen again, and then responds to whatever the crisis was at the time by making changes, and then the changes move forward. And some of the changes have developed the child welfare system that we have now. Some of the changes then create other little situations that then have to be responded to. So the understanding would be that something had happened that needed to be avoided, and the hope was that the broad sector checks might prevent that from happening again. The specifics of that aren't widely known.
These new record checks don't just apply to foster parents. I understand they also apply to existing ones on an ongoing basis. So what have you heard from foster parents who are now being subjected to an expanded record check?
Well, some of them are finding that in their local municipality, they're not doing the record checks yet because not all of the police forces are ready. There's some places that have gone on record of saying, we're not ready for that. We don't know how we're going to do it. We don't know what we're going to charge for it. And so people are kind of in a limbo of waiting to get it done. We're also hearing a lot of people are reporting back the higher incidence of fingerprinting. With the regular vulnerable sector check, we always knew that there are some people that are going to need their fingerprints done because they have the same birthday or the same name or similar name to somebody, not themselves, who has done something that would be inappropriate to work with children. We're finding the triggering of the need of fingerprints with the broad sector checks is much higher.
Vanessa, we were talking about the why these changes came into place. We asked Ontario's Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services why they made the change. Here's what they told us. We introduced and passed Bill 188, which ensures all individuals directly working with vulnerable children are appropriately vetted. This includes ensuring no prior history of predatory conduct, particularly offenses involving children, and disclosing any outstanding restraining orders. What's your response to this statement?
Well, I mean, some of that there is already covered in the assessment of a home before they open it, because the screening for foster parents is quite extensive. There's a lot of interviews, there's letters, there's references. They check into every corner of your life, including the vulnerable sector check. So the vulnerable sector check will find things that happened in the past that might have to do with a child, preclude you from being a foster parent. So the extra level, it's going beyond the regular vulnerable sector check. So we actually haven't yet heard of anybody calling in and saying that something was discovered beyond the vulnerable sector check that is now problematic. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. It might mean if it has, we haven't heard about it. But so far, nobody's come forward to us and said, they found this, it's a problem. So we're not sure where the extra piece is, but that last line in that statement about the restraining order, I don't know if that would have occurred in a natural vulnerable sector check in the first place. I would have thought it might, but perhaps that's the piece they're looking for. However, we have to sign attestations between our vulnerable sector checks, because most places we get that done every 3 years. And in your annual review in the other years, you sign attestation that there's nothing else going on that isn't already disclosed.
Vanessa Milley, CEO of the Foster Parent Society of Ontario. Good to have your perspective on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.